And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China!
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what? China! All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese.
China!
Russian.
Russia!
Italian.
Italy!
German.
Germany!
Swedish.
Sweden!
Korean.
Korea!
Egyptian.
Egypt!
Nigerian.
Nigeria!
Black.
Exactly. Nothing. Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing.
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue.
The lion won't sleep tonight, 'cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight, 'cause we woke now, and we woke now. They want us to sell our souls to barter profit, like God's property. It's hard to market, so we steady to aim, keep your eyes on target. 'Cause when you got to drive, yeah, they'd rather you park it. But I don't valet, you ain't getting these keys. I'm keeping closed hands, I'm on bended knee. I'm just a reflection, dealing with 8 sections. Art mixed with life, you can feel the convection. Your lion won't sleep tonight, 'cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight, 'cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the
Black people can't be anti-Semitic. We are Jew. You understand what I'm saying? We are Jew. So cool out. Until you do your facts, until you really do the facts with the fake indoctrination that y'all put into the schools and all that, you know what I'm saying? We're not following y'all rules.
The entire Bible is about black people. The entire Bible is about black people. Not only was Jesus black, but every character in the Bible seems to be black too. Yeah, Zephaniah and Jeremiah and Jebediah, those all aren't white people names, okay? And Jesus wasn't some tan, partially melanated Middle Eastern person either. I'm talking straight up black dude, okay? Even in the book of Revelation, when you get the vision of Daniel, he's describing someone with feet like burnt brass and white woolly hair, and we've got the deep running water voice with the red eyes, and you guys, he's black. The Jewish people are black people, like Kanye was right.
Hitler was, and the Nazis, of course, expanded on Margaret Sanger's approach to eugenics, right? Eugenics was a movement that was born in the United States under hard doctrines of racism, with the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah in the African-American community in this country, right? To eliminate them. With the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah, with the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah in the African-American community in this country, right? To eliminate them.
They don't pay rent. The city doesn't have it's a chain of events. It's so bad. One rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it will end immediately. End immediately. It'll end immediately. We are the party of common sense. I knew that once they had open borders, all of the countries, I didn't think about all over the world. I thought in South America, it's all over the world. Last week, a lot of people came in from the Congo, a big prison in the Congo in Africa. Welcome to the United States. They came in from the Congo. We're going to take back our country, and we're going to make Israel great again. And we're going to make Israel great again.
And we're going to make Israel great again.
We're going to make America great again. We're going to make them both great again, greater than ever before.
This world and the next world are asymmetrical. The next world is where the majority of a person's actions, which determine his identity, are compensated. For the righteous, they exist in the world to come and they're rewarded. And for those whose major complexion is black, are excluded from the world to come.
Their bones were discovered in Kafse caves near Nazareth in Galilee in 1933. 13 fragile skeletons, one a woman, a tiny baby at her feet. When these bones were first uncovered, they were the oldest complete modern human skeletons ever found.
The numerous skeletons that have been found in caves in Israel at the sites of Kafse and Shkul show us that there were modern humans outside of Africa over 100,000 years ago. Those modern humans may well have gone up the Nile corridor through Sinai and into the Middle East.
Today, it is prohibited, and you can Google this, to do a DNA test in Israel. Totally forbidden. Wrong. It's illegal. It's a crime. You'll be jailed if you do a DNA test in Israel. Why? Because they know the truth will come out. You come from Poland, you come from Ukraine, you came from Europe, you came from everywhere else. And they were the original Middle Eastern Jews who lived together with the Muslims and the Christians for centuries. For centuries. So what happened to a lot of the Jews?
Assalamu alaikum. In the 13th tribe, Arthur Koestler traces the origin of Eastern Europe's Jewish population that was largely decimated by the Nazi onslaught during the Second World War. Through extensive research, he discusses the history of a trading empire that was set up by a tribe known as the Khazars. The Khazar Empire was located between the expanding power blocks of Christianity and Islam, and the people were converted to Judaism by their king as a way of standing apart from both. The Khazarians and their wealth were dispersed through the countries of Eastern Europe after the collapse of the Khazar Empire. The Khazarians were not a Semitic people, that they called themselves Jews after their conversion to Judaism is as absurd as the Chinese Muslims calling themselves Arabs.
I'm about to show you something extremely controversial. It's even illegal in the state of Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, my DNA. Now, I bet you thought it was going to be a lot crazier than that.
This TikTok caused a storm online, with many debating what his results, which show no trace of being from Palestine or the Middle East, despite being Jewish, mean.
This story begins in October 1949, 1 year after Israel's formation. This is when Netanyahu was born, the second child of a historian. His paternal grandfather was a rabbi and a Zionist writer. His name was Nathan Milikowski. Later in life, he Hebraized his surname from Milikowski to Netanyahu, a name which means God has given.
This is Yair Netanyahu's DNA test that has been leaked. You can see right there his Y DNA is RM198. Descendants of RM198 come from Poland, Russia, Germany, and other European countries. Does this look Semitic to you? Does this look Middle Eastern?
You can convert to Judaism. You can't convert to a blood family. You cannot convert to a race. Judaism is a religion. That's all it is. Judaism is a religion. That's all it is.
Judaism is a religion. That's all it is. And here's what I would like to say to you, Rabbi, since you're quoting scripture, okay? The one that's relevant to me is woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness. And if you'd like to dive into a little more scripture, I think what's relevant is Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley. Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie.
Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie.
And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley. And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley.
And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley.
The fact that you would try to say, I am Jewish, and this is what I believe, and do and say the things that you are doing. People can see and hear evil, and what you are doing right now is an act of evil. The lies that you are telling, not just on me, but also on my family members, are a good example for the world to see what we are referring to when we call something radical Zionism.
Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you.
I want to say peace and blessings to everyone. Hope and pray that you guys are having a blessed week. Hope and pray that you guys, I'm sure most of you guys didn't have to work today, and some yesterday due to the celebration of tree addictions. So that's the title of this lesson for tonight, is Curse of Tree Addiction. But I hope and pray that you guys got the proper rest. And, we got a lot we're going to cover. Some of this you guys already are familiar with, and I'm going to kind of modify this as when we get to certain points of this lesson, because it's a lot of information that I'm going to cover. And really appreciate you guys for the love and support. Really appreciate all of you guys for supporting We Woke Now. There's a lot of craziness that are going on. And then despite the craziness among our community, the selective outrage of my teaching on the second Exodus doctrine, the flea doctrine, has caused so many that supposedly been connected and with this platform to lose their mind, so to speak. And I want to just say this to a radio broadcast that's Hebrew owned. This person goes by the name of Mr. Hebrew One, who's been using the material from this platform, been using my videos, been using my teachings for quite some time on this platform on Saturday nights, from what I understand. I just want to say this to you, Mr. Hebrew One. I was in your live or waiting to come on your radio show for an hour and a half. It was supposed to be open mic, and I was going to address some of the terrible words that you have said about me, the slander you have said about me on your channel, the same channel that you were playing all my videos, so many of my videos on there, without my knowledge. But even if I did know, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But then you flipped the script because of something that I taught you disagree with, and you began to say a lot of slanderous, negative things about me. So I came onto his channel or to his broadcast, and it was supposed to be open mic, and I was there. I know I was the first one on there. I called in 5 minutes before the show started, and I sat there for an hour and a half. He came on, spoke for 45 minutes, and this is supposed to be an open mic. And then he played 5 songs in a row, and every song he played, he doubled up. He played each song 2 times. And then the last song, when I finally just disconnected, he played the same song 3 times. So I know he has caller ID. I know he saw my number because I don't hide my number. And he refused to let me in so I can address his comments that he stated about me. So I will say this to you, Mr. Hebrew One, if you're listening, or if you have any of your followers that are listening, I would like to come on your show, and you and I have a discussion, pretty much to clear up what you said about me that was completely false. So with that being said, family, I'm going to leave that alone, but I just wanted to just put that out there to him and let you guys know, man, it's sad how so many of our brothers and sisters who have so much to say, especially those that supposed to be leaders that supposedly have so much to say, but kind of like waver when it comes to having direct dialogue. My only requirement to anyone, especially those that have that are leaders, that's I'm gonna be specific with that show your face, show your name, so that people can see who you are, and so that way, if I'm doing the same thing, we're on the same even playing field. But nevertheless, I just want to let you guys know and put that out there to him that was unwarranted. And if you have another open mic and you want to pre-schedule it, I will come on there and I will defend exactly what I stated. So with that being said, family, enough of that nonsense, enough of that craziness. And this just further confirms what the scripture says about what's going to happen in the times of our people, that's going to really take a true movement of the Most High, that's going to truly gather us, right? The Most High is going to gather us, not us that of ourselves. So with that being said, family, let's get into this right here. Let's get into this right here, family. This is the lesson that we're going to do tonight is curse of tree addiction. Let me say that again. The curse of tree addiction. I'll say it one more time. The curse of tree addiction. And, when you think about our people, we do have a tree addiction. And we're going to break this thing down. We do have a tree addiction. Now, we have a lot of brothers and sisters that are addicted to trees, so to speak, smoking weed or whatever many want to, they may call it today. Not sure what's the slang for it today, but many are addicted to smoking weed, not especially now that they legalized it in some states, but really addicted to smoking weed. You know what I mean? And, with that being said, you see what's going on. Many would bend and twist the scriptures to justify smoking weed, but we're not just addicted to smoking weed. We're also addicted to that Christmas tree. So many of our brothers and sisters are addicted to that Christmas tree. So many different forms of trees that our people are addicted to. But we're going to go ahead and get right into it, right? Curse of tree addiction. And, I played around with a little graphics here, family. So the pictures that you see here, I'm really one that do a lot of my stuff, my graphics and everything from scratch. I decided to play around with AI for as images. And so those images you see is AI generated. So I was like, hey, let me go in and just play around with AI and see what images I could come up with to see if I could get what I want out of it. So those images, again, you see in the background are AI generated images that I put together through that tool. But nevertheless, let's go ahead and get into it, family. Let's get into it. Let me put my mouse over here. Moderators, you guys already know what to do. Really appreciate you guys. You guys already know what to do. And I want to say shout outs to you, Jay High Style. Man, we got to catch up, man. I know I've been saying that. We got to catch up offline. Really appreciate you, Sister Carol, a sister that's been rolling with We Woke Now since the beginning, even before we started doing We Woke Now on this platform. When I was just strictly on Facebook, she was one of the first people that started following me after I did the Black Lives Matter message, and it kind of introduced me to the awakening, the people within the awakening. So shout outs to you, sis, and shout outs to all the moderators. Shout outs to all of you. So let's go and get into it, family. Curse of tree addiction. Let's start with Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 6. All right. Curse of tree addiction. Let's go ahead and get over to that passage. And notice what it says. It says, And Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other Allahim, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Let me repeat that again. And it reads, and Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth, even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other Allahim, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Now, family, for some of you guys that may not be familiar with the proper categorization of Deuteronomy chapter 28, the curses are not listed here. I know many will refer to chapter 28, starting at verse 15, as being the curses. These are not the curses. The beginning of Deuteronomy 28, it starts with the blessings. And then followed by the blessings, you have the consequences. The curses, the law of the curses is actually on the previous chapter, which is chapter 27. Deuteronomy 28 is a continuation of chapter 27. And so you have the curses, the blessings, and the consequences. So these are the consequences for what? Breaking the laws, the statutes, and commandments. So I just want to make sure we understand, make sure that we all are in sync here. So again, it reads, again, I'll read it one more time. And Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth, even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other Allahim, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So this makes it clear as part of the consequences for breaking the law, statutes, and commandments of Yah, that we were going to be forced into what? Serving other deities, starting with having this addiction, being smitten with tree addiction. And I want you guys to make sure you understand this here as well. Deuteronomy 28, and actually 27 to 28, the curses, the blessings, the consequences, these are perpetual. It's not a one-time thing. It is perpetual. Israel went into perpetual captivity for breaking the law, statutes, and commandments. So guess what? The consequences are what? Perpetual. They continue to break the Yah's law, statutes, and commandments over and over again. And guess what? The consequences, what I read to you, is the results of that. So I just want to make sure that I give you clarity on that as well. So the true Israelites, you, me, our ancestors, the true Israelites were forced into tree worship through the black codes, or the code Nor. Let me say that again. The true Israelites were forced into tree worship through the black code, which is also referred to as the code Nor. Let me prove it to you. Let me prove it to you. Arctic Sun, do I have time to break down the difference between the law, statutes, and commandments from a scriptural perspective? I have a lesson on there on that. I believe I did it. It's, if you look in the, I believe it's the foundational, there should be a lesson there about the law, statutes, and commandments. If I have enough time, I'll do it. If not, we'll save it for Friday night or Shabbat night, and I'll just do a special lesson to break down the differences between the laws, the statutes, and commandments, and do it according to the scriptures. Allow the Torah to law, the law and the prophets to speak. So thank you for that. I'll just make sure if you can't find it, I'll just do a special teaching for everyone that wants to know the foundational teachings on what's the difference between the law, statutes, and commandments. All right, appreciate the question. Okay, so this is the black code, or the code Nor. Okay, 2. And we're not going to read all of it, but I'm just going to read a couple of the laws here. But we're going to look at what it says. Number 2, right? It says, make it imperative on masters to impart religious instructions to their slaves. 3, permits the exercise of the Roman Catholic creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. Let me read these 2 again. Makes it imperative on masters to impart religious instructions to their slaves. Also 3, permits the exercise of the Roman Catholic creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. And as you see here in the back here, that is the fleur de lis. That is what the name stealers, right? Because you know what? I'm not just going to refer to the Jewish community as we know them as name stealers. We're going to refer to all these so-called Abrahamic faiths, these so-called Abrahamic religions as being name stealers. All 3 of them have stolen our identity. And I've been saying this for the longest. All of them. I've been teaching against all of them for the longest, right? That all of them stole our identity. So what you see here again, this is the fleur de lis. Let me move my mouse back. And most of you guys that cover football, you recognize this. This symbol is all around you. If you remember some of those old shoes like Stacey Adams, you'll see it there. If you look at churches, if you look at the floors, if you look at the railing, you will see this fleur de lis. It's also known as the lotus flower. And purposely in the 10th century, the Pope at that time declared this to be representative of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. This is supposed to be the Trinity. But this flower, the lotus flower origins stems from Kemet, the Egyptians, right? But anyway, this is the lotus flower. This is what they used to cut the hamstrings of our ancestors. This is what they also used to brandon some of our brothers and sisters. This is also what they use to punish, to mutilate our brothers and sisters. What they would do is they would take this, put cuts on their face, and then take their face and hang it over heat, so that way their face can really, what I want to say, boils and all this will really pop. It was just cruel. Don't want to gross you guys out. So the New Orleans Saints, the football team, that is their symbol. But why only the Native Americans, so to speak, why they're the only ones that were able to get the Washington Redskins to change their name, but we can't do the same anyway. But nevertheless, let's get back here. Makes it imperative on masters to impart religious instructions to their slaves. Permits the exercise of the Roman Catholic creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. 4, Negroes placed under the direction or supervision of any other person than a Catholic are liable to confiscation. Number 5, Sundays and holidays. Let me say that again. Sundays and holidays. What are the holidays? We already know Sunday worship is not biblical. We know that our ancient ancestors during the time of Christ, right? The Messiah himself, the disciples, even Apostle Paul, we know that they honor Shabbat. They didn't change the Shabbat. We know that even the other nations that began to worship with the Israelites that we see highlighted in Acts chapter 13, we see that they came and asked to be taught by Paul and Barnabas on what day? The Shabbat. We know that there was a court set aside for the other nations. Many will say the court of the Gentiles that allowed the other nations to come and worship on what day? The Shabbat. Offer sacrifices on what day? The Shabbat. But here we see in number 5 here, it says Sundays and holidays are to be strictly observed. All Negroes found at work on these days are to be confiscated. The offenders shall be branded with the mark of the what? Fleur de lis. That's what I just pointed out. Shout outs to Apostle Curtis, Just saw him drop a cash app. Want to say peace and blessings to Apostle Lewis Curtis. Thank you, my brother. Really appreciate you. Thank you for the love and support. And family, let's show some love to the elder that's in the building, doing the great works out in Louisiana. Just so happened I'm dealing with Louisiana, right? He's doing a great work out there. And one of the very few pastors I can truly say is a stand-up man of the Most High who truly loved the people of the Most High. And that's whether we're dealing with when I was in the Christian circles and now that I'm no longer there, but in this awakening, integrity, the type of integrity that he has. You don't find this often in any teachings, groups that teach the scriptures. So really appreciate you, and feel free to drop your channel link down inside the chat so people can know where to go at to follow you. So really appreciate you. All right. And I think I see another chat, super chat here. Arctic Sun, I want to say shout outs to you. Thank you for the love and support as well. Family, again, let's show them some love and support. Hallelujah. So nevertheless here, so we see here the offender shall be branded with the mark of the fleur de lis, and should be aggravating circumstances, capital punishment may be applied at the discretion of our judge. All right. So again, we see that the fleur de lis, that's that symbol that I share, that's displayed underneath here. That's what they use to inflict their punishment on our ancestors. All right. So another thing that I want to point out is what is the tree? Or excuse the typo. I put this part together pretty quick. So my apologies for the typo. So what is the tree do our oppressors worship? Excuse the typo. What is the tree do our oppressors worship? These trees that they post up and all. What's the connection? Well, guess what? When we start looking at the influence of the Germans, right? The Germans, their religion was, or belief system was, the Norse belief system. So when you study the Norse belief system, let me show you the name of their tree. Their tree. This is their tree right here. Yggdrasil, right? I know it's the Y there, but it's actually pronounced Yggdrasil. All right. And this Yggdrasil, it means terrible horse, or the horse of Ygg, the ogre. Let me say that again. Yggdrasil, or Drasil, which means terrible horse. Makes you think about the four horsemen, right? Especially the horse that deals with Catholicism, universalism. All right. So terrible horse, the horse of Ygg, the ogre, Norse name of the world ash tree that became Odin's gallows tree, at gallows being poetically likened to a horse drazzle, on which men rode to death, like Christ's cross. Yggdrasil was depicted as the axis mundi. In other words, this is dealing with the pole. When you think about the pole, this also makes you think about who? Asherah, the groves. Okay, tree worship. So it goes on to say its roots supported the earth, its trunk passed through the world's hub, its branches stretched over heaven and were hung with the stars. Under its roots, by the fountain of wisdom, lived the three fate goddess. Remember, we dealt with the goddess of fate. This is where you get Lady Luck. This is where you get the lottery. That's when you start dealing with the roulette table and the wheel of fortune. That is all tied into Norse belief. And as you see here, it says or Norns. And when you deal with the Norsemen, also the Vikings, this also deals with the Scythians, right? The Scythian Jots, right? So you see how all of these things, all these belief systems of Japheth are connected. They are all interconnected. So it goes on to say, a mighty serpent constantly gnawed at the tree, and at doomsday would succeed in toppling the entire structure. All the worlds is upheld. All the worlds it upheld, earth, heaven, Midgard. In other words, and also Asgard, were destined to tumble down and fall apart. And it tells us to see doomsday Odin. All right. So the other thing I want to highlight, you guys probably remember this, to talk about all the drones and the UFOs and all those different things. I want to kind of touch on that briefly as well, because many don't understand when we start dealing with UFOs, they are referred to as unidentified flying objects. And oftentimes many will start thinking about aliens. They'll start thinking about visitors from Mars. Well, guess what? When you really understand what an unidentified flying object is, it's exactly what it says. Guess what? A drone that let's just say you don't know who owns it, that is considered an unidentified flying object. So what do I think about the drones, right? What do I think about the UFOs, right? And I'm not going to really go into all of this. This is dealing with an article by elder. This is during the time of the Jersey City shooting, and the elder kind of exposed the name stealers during that time that really caused a lot of tension in that area that many didn't know about how many of the name stealers were bullying our people out of their homes up in that area. But nevertheless, so how should we approach this subject according to scriptures? What does the scripture say about these unidentified flying objects? What does it say about the drones? Guess what? Not only does it say something about the drones, and not only does it say something about the UFOs, it also says something about this so-called Santa Claus that is supposedly flew around the world, right, on Mother's Night, right? Let's see what it says about that. Let's get into it. Jeremiah chapter 10, starting at verse 1. Let's see what it says about it. It says here, hear ye the word. Hear, Shammai. That's what it says here. Shammai, which means listen with intelligence, discern, be obedient. Hear ye the word which Yahweh speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. So this is not dealing with the Catholic Church, the Catholic Christian Church. This is not dealing with Judaism. This is not dealing with Islam. This is dealing with the true people of the Most High. This is not dealing with a religion. This is dealing with the people, the blood descendants, the true blood descendants of Israel. O house of Israel, thus saith Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen. Really, that word heathen should not be there. Simply should say other nations. All right. But anyway, thus saith Yahweh, learn not the way of the other nations, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. All right. So let's go to the Tanakh. Let's see what the Tanakh says about this same passage. It says, hear the word which Yahweh has spoken to you, O house of Israel. Verse 2. Thus saith Yahweh, do not learn to go the way of the nations, right? The other nations. Do not be dismayed by portents in the sky. Let the nations be dismayed at them. Now, what does this mean, right? Yahweh warned Israel not to be influenced by astrology or other signs in the sky, right? A lot of our brothers and sisters are driven by astrology, right? So Israel were not to worship, fear, or be influenced by signs like eclipses, comets, meteors, or unusual conjunction of stars, right? So this is the Most High reassuring us. We are not to have fear, because of what's happening or what's being reported in the skies. We're not supposed to have fear. We're supposed to follow these very instructions that the Most High has said. Nor were we to worship the sun, the moon, or the stars, or look to the signs of the zodiac to determine their future and destiny. Believe it or not, a lot of our brothers and sisters are into astrology. A lot of our brothers and sisters, whether in the church or outside the church, guess what? They deal with zodiac signs, right? A lot of these so-called Christian entertainers, especially when you start like the Steve Harvey and all of those guys, they have segments that deals with what? Zodiac, right? trying to tell someone's future based upon the zodiacs. Anyway, most people in Jeremiah's day, as well as most people down through history, have either denied the existence of Yahweh or else worshiped the heavenly bodies and the deities of other cultures. So how did all of this happen? How did all this come together? How did our ancestors get forced into, because many of them were forced into worshiping these different, or should I say not worshiping, or should I say stick addiction or tree addiction? How did we get into this tree addiction? Well, it was syncretism that caused the problem. This is what syncretism is right here, right? Reconciliation of different beliefs, units of communities to combine against a common enemy, lying, to lie like a cretin, to mix, blend, mixture. All right. So when you study about our ancestors in the Congo, and these some sources, I'm not going to go into the sources for the sake of time, but this really gives you a layout of how many of our brothers and sisters that's in West Africa, how many of them got through syncretism, how Catholicism spread, right? You know, it was through syncretism, and simply put, mixing and meshing, right? Syncretism is why we see the Catholic Church being as large as it is. Matter of fact, it's pretty interesting, right? About Ghana, right? Just look it up. 2022 statistics about the belief system, the religious beliefs of the people in Ghana. According to the statistics, right, the report that I saw, 70% of the people of Ghana are Christians, Catholics, are part of one of those one of those different denominations. That was pretty interesting, right? And then 10%, no, actually 20% is Muslim, and less than 3% is their native culture beliefs. So why is that important? So when we think about Babylonians, the Babylon system, this is where we have to free our minds from the Eurocentric teaching of what Babylon is, right? Babylon, when Jeremiah was given the instructions through the Most High, telling Israel to flee Babylon, at that time, physical Babylon existed. And so our ancestors were told to leave Babylon and go back to Jerusalem, to go back to Israel. But instead, they did not listen. And so they were punished accordingly. That Babylon no longer exists. But when we get to Babylon in Revelation, this is a worldwide system. Babylon is not just the United States. If you read Daniel chapter 7, you'll see the United States is just the daughter of Great Britain. And you see other nations listed there. So many of our brothers and sisters are under this delusion, thinking that it's just the United States. No, pretty much this world system, this Babylonian system or system of men is universal. It's all around the world. So why do I bring up Ghana? Why? Because that 70% of the local people are Christians or Catholics. So that means they're tying into this Babylonian system. That means that they are what? Tree worshiping there as well, putting up that Christmas tree. So brothers and sisters, that's the point that I want to make clear. You can look it up. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize. Look it up. Just do a simple Google right now, and just type in what is the top religions in Ghana, and it's going to show you exactly what I pointed out. So family, that's going back to my point. When we're told to flee Babylon in the book of Revelation, is to flee the systems of man. You know, not just the religious systems, but, you know, you have these governmental systems. You have so many different systems of men, fraternities, sororities that are deceiving our people. So that is just Ghana. That's just Ghana, right? Look it up, family. So again, it's all done by syncretism. Last point too on that note. See, Before there was a United States, there was a Great Britain. Great Britain, along with the French, right? Along with those guys, the Portuguese, they divided the entire continent of Africa. They placed the names over many of those territories. Great Britain, guess what? They own Australia. They own Canada. They own great parts of Brazil. Matter of fact, Brazil is the largest area where there's, in terms of group of Negroes outside of Africa, is in Brazil. They are brothers and sisters too. Anyway, family. Anyway. So let's continue here. I'm not going to get into all of this, but this is just breaking down how the Catholic Church, the Catholic Christian Church, infiltrated the Congos by way of syncretism. Okay, let me fast forward here. All right, because this will take a lot of time. So let's deal with this here. Let's start with Easter, because in order to really understand fully Christmas, you have to understand Easter, right? The professor, or soon to be, I think he's a professor, who had a debate with Billy Carson, he is teaching that Christmas is not paganism. He has this argument stating that actually the pagans got it from them. The pagans got the December 25th worship from them. Absolutely unbelievable, family. Unbelievable. And that right there is a clear indicator that he's not studying Torah. He's not studying the law and the prophets. He's not studying what we're going to cover, or what we just covered with Jeremiah, because all of these things existed even before. And then he goes on to say that there was no celebration for Christmas until the 4th century. Go figure. There was no celebration for Christ's birthday prior to the 4th century, which we've been teaching that for years. Go figure, right? Anyway. Let's see here. Oh, someone posted it here. Let's see here. Almost 50% of South Africa is Catholic, Christian. 20 to 30% north is Muslim, and the central part is up for grabs, including ancestral worship. Armand, thank you for sharing that. All right. So what is Easter? So in order to understand Christmas, we have to start with Easter to see how everything ties in. Okay, let's start with Easter. What is Easter? Let's start with the spring equinox, right? Or equinox. Some of you guys would say equinox or equinox. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's connect the dots here. Right? Equinox, right? It says here. It says either the 2 times each year, about March 21st, September 23rd, when the sun crosses the equator, and the day and night are everywhere on the earth of approximately equal lengths. So again, March 21st, that's what we would call the spring. September 23rd is what we call the fall or autumn. So those are the 2 equinoxes. So Easter is a movable feast, right, in the church that occurs on Sunday after the vernal equinox or spring equinox, right? And so I wanted to make sure you guys understand, when you start understanding the Gregorian calendar, the whole purpose of the Gregorian calendar was to, in a nutshell, it was for their Easter celebration, because they wanted to keep Easter in a certain space on the calendar. So the Catholic Church created the Gregorian calendar strictly for Easter, right? Because truly, when we say Passover or Pasach, right? That's the ancient Hebrew pronunciation, Pasach. Pasach occurs the first new moon after the spring equinox. Now, with understanding the calendars, I think 2 years ago, Passover, Pasach, the true date, right, was towards the end of April. So what the church, and actually you'll see within Judaism as well, they try to keep it, and you'll see they'll selectively change up, right? Sometimes they'll go the first new moon, that little peep of the sun, that's the new year, or new year for Israel, or they'll do the first full moon after the spring equinox to try to keep it within a certain block of time. But again, Easter, this Christian Catholic feast day, is a movable feast that occurs on Sunday, right? The Sunday after the vernal equinox. So the Roman Catholics established the traditional Easter Sunday as the festival that commemorates the resurrection of Christ on the third day. And so when we go to the etymological dictionary definition of Easter, look at what it says. It says Easter Dag, right? It tells us that Northumbrian, Iastre, Proto-Germanic, as we see here, Austron, in other words, it means dawn. Also the name of a goddess of fertility and spring, and make a note of that. So when we think of Easter, we're dealing with fertility during what time of the year? The spring, right? It goes on to say, perhaps originally of sunrise, whose feast was celebrated at the spring equinox. And it tells us Proto-Indo-European root os, to shine. Betty says Anglo-Saxon Christians adopted her name. Anglo-Saxon Christians, right? This is dealing with Germany. This is dealing with Germany. The Anglos, the Saxons, the Germanic areas, because of the Anglos and the Saxons that conquered the Brits. So you're dealing with the Anglos, the Saxons, Germanic influence. Still tying into who? The Scythians. Still tying into who? The Khazarians. Still tying into who? The Vikings. Still tying into who? The Norse religion, the Norse belief system. Want to give a special shout out here to Eddie True Love. Thank you for the love and support. I just noticed the super chat here. Thank you, Eddie True Love, for the super chat. And family, let's show some love and support to Eddie True Love. Appreciate the love and support just over time with this platform. Really appreciate you. Thank you again. And again, family, let's show Eddie True Love some love and support. All right. So the Anglo and the Saxons, Christians, adopted her name and many of the celebratory practices for their Mass of Christ's resurrection. Almost all neighboring languages use a variant of Latin Pascha to name this holiday, right? So this is just giving me some history of this here. And as we see here, again, it says the Anglo-Saxons, Christians, adopted her name. In other words, this goes back to syncretism. They took a name that had nothing, that's not even biblical. It's not even a close translation. It's a transliteration. It's a completely different word. But let's go to the origins. Easter was transliterated from the Greek word Pascha, which means Passover. The ancient Hebrew is Pasach. The Greek Pascha, also Latin, is similar, but Iastre sounds nothing like Pascha. So that's what transliteration is. Basically, they just took a whole nother word, and this is when you start dealing with syncretism. So Easter actually derives from the goddess Iastre. She is identified with the Babylonian fertility goddess Ishtar, which leads me to the rituals honoring Ishtar. So in Babylon, like many other ancient pagan cultures, human sexuality was associated with fertility in nature. Temples were erected in Ishtar's honor, and sexual ritualism was associated with the worship of her. Some scholars attested that attest that each year around the time of the spring equinox is the marriage of Ishtar and Tammuz reenacted. This ceremony consisted of a sexual ritual between the king of Babylon and the high priestess of Babylon. It was believed that this union would ensure plentiful crops. So the sacred prostitution was practiced in honor of Ishtar, family. So they were also called eunuchs, all right? Right? Some of these people that were the worship of Ishtar that was dealing with these sexual rituals, they're referred to as eunuchs as well, right? But anyway, I'm not going to get into all of this here. Let's go right into tying all of this into the worship of Ishtar, right? The Easter egg, right? We're still dealing with Easter. We're going to tie this into the tree worship, which as you guys will see here. In addition to the name Easter, the symbols associated with Easter, with Easter festival, also revealed its pagan influence. In paganism, the mundane egg is symbolic of the manifestation of the cosmos. So the egg is also a symbol of rebirth that is associated with various pagan deities. The Egyptian god Seth, guess what? The ancient Egyptians hung eggs in their temples. Seth, the Egyptian god of time, supposedly laid an egg. Guess what? The ancient Greeks, Orphic tradition, the primordial hermaphroditic god hatched from an egg and then created the deity, right? Chinese, Pu Kung Wang, birthed from an egg. The Chinese myth has it that in the beginning, all was darkness and confusion, but out of a vast egg came a being called Pung Ku Wang. Y'all know that symbol that has the black on one side, the white on the other side. Guess what? That's Pung Ku Wang. The lower half of the shell of the egg became the earth, and the upper half of the heavens. Right? Then we get into the Babylonians, right? And the Sumerians. When we start dealing with them, that's Billy Carson's area, right? Supposedly. So according to Babylonian legend, an egg containing Ishtar fell from heaven and landed in the Euphrates River. The cosmic egg of an incredible size, supposedly, was pushed to shore by fish and incubated by a dove. Babylon is the roots of Easter egg hunts, right? So colored eggs were also used in honor of Ishtar for sacred prostitution. So I'll say to them that scholar Weiss, right? Run it by me again when you say that Christmas is not pagan. Anyway, colored eggs were also used in honor of Ishtar for sacred prostitution. So ancient pagans believed that finding Ishtar's egg in nature at the time of her rebirth would bring forth a blessing. In ancient Anglo-Saxon mythology, the fertility goddess Astara changed her bird into an egg-laying rabbit. These brightly colored eggs were given as gifts to children. After the rise of Roman Catholicism, the egg became a symbol of the tomb from which Christ was resurrected. And Christians continue to promote the very deceptive pagan custom of painting eggs during the festival of Easter, which leads me to Peter Cottontail, the Easter Bunny. So in paganism, the rabbit is a sign of sexual fertility. Ancient pagans believed that finding Ishtar's egg in nature at the time of her rebirth would bring forth a blessing. In ancient Anglo-Saxon mythology, the fertility goddess Astara changed her bird into, again, an egg-laying rabbit. A rabbit can have 4 to 8 litters each year. During its lifespan, a rabbit can potentially produce up to 600 offsprings. It was believed that rabbits had sex indiscriminately and were thus associated with the fertility goddess, in whose honor sexual wanton acts were committed. Rabbits were mainly associated with Astara and Aphrodite, right? Or Aphrodite, right? They were sacrificed on the altars, and even the consumption of rabbit meat was believed to cure infertility well into the 17th century, right? So let me go back here. I'm hitting these too quick here. So the rabbit-like Easter is associated with the moon. Excuse me for messing up my presentation here, clicking too fast. Right? So rabbits carry her young for a month and lining up with the length of the moon cycle. A new moon was considered masculine and the vanishing moon feminine. Aristotle believed that the rabbit was male one year and female the next year. So the Roman Catholic Church, guess what, family? The Roman Catholic, the Christian Church, they are not the only influence on the church and the usage of the egg, or should I say on Yah's people in using the egg. Well, let's see what Judaism teaches. Let's go into this messed up Talmud, right? This false book, this anti-Torah book. Let's see what it says about eggs, enchantments. It says, our rabbis taught it is permitted to consult by a charm the spirit of oil or eggs, but that they give false answers. Incantations are made over oil contained in a vessel, but not in the hand. Therefore, one may anoint with the latter, but not with the former, right? So it's not outlawing. It's not saying that you know not to use eggs, right? But look at the footnote 17. Every plant in the vegetable kingdom was believed to have its own presiding genius, which could be provoked by incantations, right? And it goes on to say both eggs and oil were used for purposes of magic and in folk medicine. All right, so again, let me read that last point here. It says, it is noteworthy from the present passage that the Talmud had no faith in these charms. But they did not outlaw them, right? They used them since it may have been used as charms. So eggs, incantations. So what does March 31st, let's get back to here. What does March 31st, the spring equinox, represent? Well, the planting of seeds into fertile ground. Let me say that again. March 21st represents the planting of the seed. See, that's the time that you have the height of all these sexual or so-called sacred prostitutions, right? Because the goal is to have a good harvest, planting. So that's the time of planting the seed. So the celebration of Christmas, right? December 25th, right? And I'm going to tie this all into the spring equinox. So during the 4th century, there was so much argument about adoption of a date. Some favored the popular date Corion, and this is dealing with Christ's birthday, right? Because up until the 4th century, they had no birthday. Initially, I believe they were celebrating it in March. So during the 4th century, there was so much argument about adoption of a date. Some favored the popular date of Corion, when the Divine Virgin gave birth to the new Aeon of Alexandria, now called the 12th night of or Epiphany. This date is still the official nativity in Armenian churches. So what is the winter solstice? Now, this is how we're going to see the connection of Easter to Christmas. This is how we're going to see the connection between Easter and the birth of the so-called Messiah that, of the other cultures, right? And why the Catholic Church selected that date. All right, so what is the winter solstice? Let's break that down and we'll bring this together here. Let's go to the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of the winter solstice, or just for the solstice itself. It reads, either the 2 points on the ecliptic at which its distance from the celestial equator is greatest, and which is reached by the sun each year about June 21st and December 21st. So as you see here, the spring equinox, or should we say the equinoxes, right? The spring or the vernal equinox, March 21st, the autumn or fall equinox, September 23rd, between the 21st and 23rd. Then we see the solstice, 2 of them. June 21st, that's normally the beginning of what? The summer. And then you have December 21st, that is the beginning of winter. All right, so I hope you guys understand this. All right, see how this all are coming together, because I'm going to bring it all together right here. So what is Solus Invictus? Let's break this down real quick. Understand that the Solus Invictus starts with understanding Saturn. And so who is Saturn, right? This is when we start getting to the Saturnalia and all of those things. So Saturn, Roman name for Cronus, the primitive earth god associated with Great Mother Rhea, and credited with her own destroyer function of devouring her own children. Saturn was the same as the black sun of Chaldean astrologers, the lord of death, at the nadir of the underworld, representing the sun at its lowest aspect in the midwinter solstice. Sometimes he was called son of night. At Haran, near Old Edessa, in what is now Turkey, Saturn's worship included the wearing of black clothing and burning candles made of incense, opium, goat's fat, and urine with the prayer, Lord, whose name is August, whose power is widespread, whose spirit is sublime. O Lord Saturn, the cold, the dry, the dark, the harmful, crafty sire who knowest all wiles, who are deceitful, sage understanding, who causes prosperity or ruin, or happy or unhappy is he whom thou makest. So as a rule, the Lord of Death was both a god and a demon, like Shiva the destroyer, or Shiva the destroyer. He was the negative side of the summer sun, propitiated in midwinter, so he might allow spring to come again. This important festival became the Roman Saturnalia, which contributed many of its customs to Christmas. At Saturn's festival, death and atonement were featured, as well as joyous celebrations of the sun's new birth. So again, the important festival became the Roman Saturnalia. That's why I pointed out Saturn is really important to really understand all of this, which contributed many of its customs to Christmas. So Saturn gave his name to Saturday, the Sabbath of the week's end before the coming of the new sun on Sunday. To the Jews, this was the seventh day when God rested. Like Saturn, quiescent in the dark, excuse me for butchering it, in darkness before the sun rose again, Saturn was identified with the seventh planetary sphere, whose archaeological influences, all right, excuse me, I thought I had the rest of it in there, but I didn't. But in a nutshell, you see Saturn, that's where you get the name Saturday, right? And this is paying homage to Saturn. And one of the things that we have to understand too is when we start dealing with the days of the week, in scripture, they didn't use days of the week. They just said the first day, the second day, the third day, the fourth day. And then on Shabbat, guess what? The seventh day was referred to as Shabbat, not Saturn, because Saturn or Saturday pay homage to those deities, right? And then when we start understanding like sun, Monday, Tuesday, they're not only dealing with Greeks, but those days are dealing with the Norse religions, all right? But anyway, what is Christmas? All right, just still tying into what the tree worship, we getting there. Let's do with Christmas real quick, and then we're going to see how this all ties into the spring equinox. So again, for its first 3 centuries, the Christian church knew no birthday for its Savior. Let me say that again. The first 3 centuries, there was no birthday. So where did they come up with the date? How did they just mysteriously landed on a date that's other nations, such as the Greeks, such as the Romans, such as the Babylonians, how did they land on the same date of their deities, their messiahs? So for the first 3 centuries, the Christian church knew no birthday for its saviors. During the 4th century, there was much argument about adoption of a date. Some favored the popular date of Corion, when the Divine Virgin gave birth to a new Aeon in Alexandria, now called the 12th night or Epiphany. All right, so we already touched on this. But we see here still, it says, this day still is is the official nativity in Armenian churches and celebrated with more pomp than Christmas by the Greek Orthodox. All right, so Roman churchmen favored the Mithraic winter solstice festival called Dies Natalis Solis Invictus. All right, so what is called the birthday of the unconquered sun? That's what this phrase is, right? When we go back here, Dies Natalis Solis Invictus simply means birth of the unconquered sun. Now, again, it's amazing when this person that debated Billy Carson had the gall to actually say that the other nations got their stuff from Christians. Unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. Rewriting history. All right. So what is called the birthday of the unconquered sun, blended with the Greek sun festival of the Helia by the Emperor Aurelian. This December 25th nativity also honored such gods as Attis, Dionysus, Osiris, Syrian Baal, and other versions of the solar son of man who bore such titles as Light of the World, Son of Righteousness, and Savior. Most pagan mysteries celebrated the birth of the divine child at the winter solstice. In many cases, it will be like a 5-day celebration, family. So Norsemen, that's dealing with the Vikings, that's dealing with the Scythian Jots, right? Who's connected to the Khazars, who's connected to the Ashkenazis. Anyway, Norsemen celebrated the birthday of their lord Frey at the Nadar, however you want to pronounce it, of the sun in the darkest days of winter, known to them as Yule. The night of birth, Christmas Eve, was called Modrenek. Excuse me for butchering it. Modrenek, Latin Matrum Noctem. The night of the mother, originally a greater festival than Christmas Day. Early in the 4th century, again, the Roman Church adopted December 25th because the people were used to calling it a God's birthday. But Eastern churches refused to honor it until 375 AD. The fiction, let me go back here. The fiction that some recorded existed in the land of Jesus, alleged birth certainly could not be upheld. For the Church of Jerusalem continued to ignore the official date until the 7th century. So between the 4th and the 7th century, family, this is not ancient stuff. This is not ancient stuff. The 4th century, again, is when they began to celebrate a birthday for Christ. They got that date from other cultures, as I just pointed out. So most pagan mysteries celebrated the birth of their so-called divine child at Solus Leviticus or Solus Invictus. All right. So Norsemen celebrated the birthday of their Lord Frey, at the nadir of the sun in the darkest winter, known to them as Yule. Okay. So now let's go to Jeremiah 7, chapter 7, verse 18 and 20 through 20. Let's tie this in with the Yule log, because the Yule is a piece of wood, and that's still tying into what? Tree worship. Okay. So let's go to Jeremiah 7. It says here, the children gather wood, and the fathers kindled the fire, and the women knead their dough to make cakes to the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto other gods, that they may provoke me to anger. Do they provoke me to anger, saith Yahweh? Do they not provoke themselves to the confusion of their own faces? So look at here. So we see here, this is key. It says here, the children gather wood, right? This is still dealing with the worship, tree worship. The father kindled the fire, right? Now we're dealing with child sacrifices. And the women knead their dough to make cakes to the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto other Elohims, that they may provoke me to anger. Do they provoke me to anger, saith Yahweh? Do they not provoke themselves to the confusion of their own faces? Therefore, thus saith the Yahweh Elohim, behold, mine anger, my fury shall be poured out upon this place, upon man, upon beast, upon the trees of the field, and upon the fruit of the ground, and it shall burn, and shall not be quenched. So it says again, Jeremiah says that the children gathered wood. So what is the meaning of the children gathering wood? Well, let's go to this book here, Tradition of Elders or Proofs of the Historical Proof of the Pentateuch, 1871, page 163. Look at what it says. It says, a farther confirmation and illustration of these facts is found in the customs of the Christmas Yule log, right? Remember, Christmas means Christ dismissed. That's the proper meaning of Christmas. Mass means dismiss, right? It means scatter, shatter, break into pieces, all right? But anyway, a farther confirmation and illustration of these facts is found in the custom of the Christmas Yule log. The word Yule is the Chaldean term for an infant or little child. And hence it was that Christmas Day was called among the heathens Yule Day or the Child's Day. And the night before Christmas, in other words, Mother Night. So Israel sacrificed their children to the Queen of Heaven. The women offered milk and cookies. That's right. Yeah, that's right. The milk and cookies. The milk and cookies. So the Yule, that log that you see inside those fireplaces, represents a child. That is child sacrifice. But then we also saw that the women in the passage, they sacrificed their children to the Queen of Heaven, and they offered milk and cookies to the Queen of Heaven. Right? So the milk and cookies, according to the History Channel, they're trying to figure out what's the origins. When did the milk and cookies start? Well, look at what they say. According to one theory, the cookies and milk customs is derived from an older tradition when families would stuff stockings with goodies from Santa and hang them by the chimney, his preferred mode of interest as a welcoming gift. Leaving cookies and milk for Santa and perhaps a few carrots for his reindeer took off as an American holiday tradition in the 1930s during the Great Depression. The original roots of this holiday food tradition goes back even further, all the way back to ancient Norse mythology. That's dealing with the Germanic people. That's dealing with the Anglos, the Saxons, the Scythians, right? Because Scythians is another group that's in that area, right? That is not talked about. You know, that's dealing with Ashkenaz. That's dealing with the Khazars. Anyway, you guys get the point. So again, it says all the way to ancient Norse mythology. Odin, the most important Norse god, was said to have an 8-legged horse named Sleipnir, which he rode with a raven perched on each shoulder. But really, family, as I just pointed out to you, we could take this all the way back to the worship of the Queen of Heaven. We could take it all the way back to the Babylonians, Jeremiah chapter 7, because remember, Jeremiah, his whole book of prophecies were written during the Babylonian captivity. Remember, there was 3 invasions of the Babylonians. So when we go to Jeremiah chapter 7, back there, verse 18, we see the children gather wood, and the fathers kindled their fire, and the women knead their dough to make cakes to the Queen of Heaven. That's cookies, and to pour out what? Drink offerings unto other Elohims or other deities, other gods. So this is where you get the milk and cookies, putting it, placing it out for so-called Santa Claus. This goes all the way back to the Babylonians. Well, guess what? I'm sure that many of the different, let's just say Ghana, those 70,000, that 70% of the people that still embrace the Christian Catholic culture or religion, I'm sure that they're putting milk and cookies out there for the supposedly Santa Claus, which is actually the Babylonian goddess, the Queen of Heaven, the groves. That's why, again, family, Babylon, Revelation is telling us to flee the systems of man. It is a universal system. Anyway, let's continue. Let's get down to skip to chapter 44, verse 19, and look at what it says. And when we burned incense to the queen of heaven and poured out drink offerings unto her, did we make her cakes to worship her and pour out drink offerings unto her without our men? See, the women was being defined here in this passage when Jeremiah called them out for what they were practicing, and they made it clear, like, hey, I'm men, they don't care. Our men allow us to do it. If our husbands don't have a problem with it, guess what? We're good. If the leaders don't have a problem with it, guess what? We're good. Guess what? We still standing. We got to be doing something right, because if we're doing something wrong, the Most High would have killed us. That was their approach. And believe it or not, many have that same approach today when it comes to engaging in things that they should not engage in, indulge in beliefs that they should not be indulging in. All right. So milk and cookies, right? Israel again started worshiping false deities, especially the false god or goddess Ishtar, the Babylonian goddess of love and fertility. Throughout the city, entire families supported this. Children gathered wood while their fathers lit the fires, and the women knead the dough to make bread to offer to the goddess called the Queen of Heaven. And so December 25th, guess what, family? The winter solstice, it is 9 months later after the spring equinox, right? Which represents the birth. Let me say that again. March 21st represents the planting of the seed, and then when we get to December 21st or December 25th, this period, it represents the birth of their Messiah. Not our Messiah, not the Hebrew Israelite Messiah of the ancient text. No, they're worshiping and bringing forth something completely the opposite, right? So 9 months later represents the birth of a pagan Messiah, which leads me to parasites, still part of the tree addiction. So we dealt with the tree somewhat. We're going to deal more with it. All right. We dealt with the Easter. We dealt with showing how all the birth and everything ties together. So we're going to deal with the parasites, which is the mistletoe. All right. I'm not going to deal with this too long because I want to get back to the tree because I got a lot to cover under there. But 7 surprising facts about the mistletoe. Think mistletoe is all about holiday romance? Think again. The festive plant, which also goes by the name of devil's fuge, holds some sinister secrets. Number 1, the mistletoe is a parasite. That's right, family. The mistletoe is a parasite. The mistletoe is an evergreen pest that attaches itself to trees, plants, and shrubs, stealing their nutrients and water. This can weaken or disfigure the host plant and eventually kill it. So the mistletoe main branch comes from the Druids, right? It was derived from Babylon, right? Again, the mistletoe. So that's when we started dealing with the mistletoe. We see the Druids, but we could go all the way back to the Babylonians. It was derived from Babylon, was a representation of their Messiah, which they refer to as the man branch. So the mistletoe was regarded as a divine branch, in other words, a branch that came from heaven and grew upon a tree that sprung out of the earth. The ingrafting of the celestial branch into the earthly tree, heaven and earth, that sin had severed, was joined together, and thus the mistletoe main branch became the token of divine reconciliation to man. The kiss being well known, token of pardon and reconciliation. So where did the Jews get the ideas from? Well, we could go to the 85th book of Psalms, verse 10 and 11. Mercy and truth are met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed each other. Truth shall spring out of the earth and righteous shall look down from heaven. But let's go back to the mistletoe. More facts on the mistletoe. Once it infects a tree, mistletoe is difficult to remove. When the seeds sprout, they grow through the bark of trees and into their tissues, extending up and down within the branches. Number 3, guess what? The mistletoe is poisonous. Eating any part of the plant could cause drowsiness, blurred vision, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, weakness and seizure. The symptoms are caused by a poisonous ingredient called phytotoxin, which is found in all parts of the plant, right? So Israel operated in the spirit of the mistletoe. Israel operated in the spirit of a parasite or parasitical plant. And I'm going to prove that to you. Israel had a perpetual tree addiction. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 2, because in order for us to, for you to understand 10, understand chapter 7, you have to go to Jeremiah chapter 2 and start here. Let's start with Jeremiah chapter 2. For old time, I have broken thy yoke. Let me read that again. For old time, I have broken thy yoke and burst thy bands, and thou says, why? Excuse me. I'm butchering tonight, family. Let me read it again. For of old time, I have broken thy yoke and burst thy bands, and thou saidest, I will not transgress when upon every high hill and under every green tree thou wanderest playing the harlot. Now, this gives you a clear indicator of why those gifts are under the Christmas tree, right? It says, upon every high hill, under every what? Green tree. So underneath every green tree, they are what? Indulging in temple prostitution, sexual perversions. Yet I have planted thee a noble vine. This is powerful right here. Yah is saying to Israel, I have planted thee a noble vine, holy, a right seed. How then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? So now they went from being a noble vine to being what? A parasite, leeching off of other belief systems instead of embracing the culture that Yah has set aside for them. They became a what? Degenerate plant. That's what a mistletoe is, a degenerate plant. So when we go to Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 1 through 4, look at what it says. These are the statutes and judgments which ye shall observe to do in the land, which Yahweh Elohim of thy fathers giveth thee to possess it all the days that ye live upon the earth. All right. Ye shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which ye shall possess serve their Elohims, upon the high mountains and upon the hills and under every green tree. So Israel is given the commandments before going into the promised land that they are to what? Knock down, destroy all of these places. But instead of destroying them, Israel did what? They embraced them. Look at here. Upon the high mountains, upon the hills, under every green tree, right? Those are altars, sexual altars under those Christmas trees. Israel was supposed to destroy these places. It says, ye shall overthrow their altars and break their pillars, burn their what? Groves, tree worship, with fire, and ye shall hew down the graven images, tree worship, of their Elohims, and destroy the names of them out of that place. So let's look up groves. Let's see what groves are. And notice what we see. We see Asher, right? We see it here. Or Asherah, right? Now look at this here. It says here Asherah or Astarte, a Phoenician goddess. But then we see here grove, right? So Asherah, groves for idol worship. Now, when we take it a step further, a Babylonian Astarte, Canaanite goddess of fortune and happiness, the supposed consort of Baal, her images. So we see A, it says God, goddess, the goddess or goddesses. We see B, her image. But here's the key. C, sacred trees or poles set up near an altar. So guess what? Sacred trees, wooden poles, or these are still part of what? Tree worship, paying homage to who? Asherah. Paying homage to who? The Queen of Heaven. Paying homage to who? Ultimately, Baal. whom she is married to. So who is Asherah? Asherah, Semitic name, right, of the great goddess, possibly from old Iranian Asha, which means universal law. Go figure. Universal law, universal Catholic. A law of the matriarch, like Roman natural, Asher or Asherah was in wisdom the mistress of the gods. Sumerians called her Ashnan, in other words, strength of all things, and a kindly and bountiful maiden. Her sacred city, Marash, appears in the Bible as Marashah, right? That's the place where they were eating a lot of chicken, family. Anyway, I didn't place that inside this lesson here, but we see Joshua 15, verse 44. So the Old Testament, Asherah, is translated grove without any explanation that the sacred grove represented the goddess's genital center, birthplace of all things. In the matriarchal period, Hebrews worshiped the goddess in groves, right? And we see 1 Kings chapter 14, verse 23, later cut down by patriarchal reformers who burned the bones of Asherah's priests on their own altars. And we see 2 Chronicles 24, verse 4 through 5 as a reference point. So tree worship is the worship of sacred groves, right? Now, which leads me to tree worship of this, another form of tree worship, which is the tree itself, right? Another form that we're going to deal with that's person right here said is not pagan, right? Under every green tree plagued the harlot. So the people were like prostitutes who refused the yoke and restrictions of Yahweh's commandments. They refused to obey Yah's law that prohibited idolatry and sexual immorality. When the people turned to false gods, they were unfaithful to Yah. They committed spiritual adultery against him. They forsook Yah and gave themselves over to the worship of false deities. The Israelites even constructed altars and worship sites on every high hill, under every huge tree, along the roadways, throughout the nation. Fertility rites, in other words, phallic worship, was usually practiced at these altars, which means that the priests and priestesses at these sites were religious prostitutes. They were available for the worshipers seeking a fruitful harvest through the act of sex, which symbolizes the bringing forth of life, production, and fruitfulness. So this is what Israel was engaging in. This is what they were indulging in at this time. So Israel turned into a degenerate plant of a strange vine. In other words, they became a parasite to the Babylonian culture. They became a parasite to the other nations' beliefs and cultures versus embracing and sticking to their own. So who is the true vine? Not going to get into all of this, but I'll just give you a couple of passages here. John 15, starting at verse 1 and 2 and skipping down to verse 5. I am the true vine. This is Christ. This is Yahweh Shai, Hamashiach. And my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, and that it may bring forth more fruit. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me, ye can do nothing. And then we see abide, yashab, it says to sit down, to dwell, to remain. All right. So who is the true vine? I answered the question, but let's fast forward, family. Let's get into some additional things here. These are just passages supporting who the true vine is, which is Hamashiach. All right. Let me just fast forward here. This is still reiterating the same point. All right. But again, every Christmas tree, this is the point that I want to skip down to. Every Christmas tree represents an altar. Let me say that again. Every Christmas tree represents an altar. This altar was used for supposed sexual rituals. All right. So this is where we get to Jeremiah. Getting back to Jeremiah 10. So in Jeremiah 2, we see on every high hill, Israel is performing these sexual acts under these trees, right? So the altars are all throughout the land. You see this in the Maccabees, right? But anyway, let's go here. Hear ye the word which Yahweh speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. All right, and then we go to the transliteration of it, as we already read earlier. Thus saith Yahweh, do not learn to go the way of the nations, and do not be dismayed by the portents in the sky. Let the nations be dismayed by them. All right, so false religions have rituals that their members must follow. In most cases, these rituals stress securing righteousness by being good and doing good works. In other words, people must do good works in order to become righteous and acceptable to their false deities. However, this is contrary to the truth. But let's go continue with this Christmas tree here. Let's continue with this Christmas tree, because many will say, hey, Dave, he's not describing a tree here. They're describing carvings of wood. Remember, tree worship is both the actual tree itself and it's also the carvings of it. They go hand in hand, as we just laid out. So Jeremiah 10, starting at verse 3, let's see what it says. For the customs of the people are vain, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest, and it says the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They deck it with silver and gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers that it not move. All right. So some would say that this tree is being carved out. Either way, if you want to say this tree is being carved into a pole, so to speak, it's still tree worship. It's still the groves. It's still the worship of Asherah. Whether you just you don't carve the tree, you just chop it down and you nail it to keep it standing, right, inside your home, or you make a pole. It's still tree worship. It's still the worship of Asherah. It's still the groves. So look at what it says. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. Verse 5, they are upright as the palm tree. Come on, family. But speak not. They must needs to be born, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it good in them. So what it's saying is, these trees, these poles are dependent on you. They have no power, but the power that you give them. That's basically what this is saying here. All right. And so when we go to the Tanakh version of this, it says the laws of the nations are delusions, for it is the work of a craftsman's hand. He cuts down a tree in the forest with an axe. He adorns it with silver and gold. He fastens it with nails and hammers, so that it does not totter. They are like a scarecrow in a cucumber patch. They cannot speak. They have to be carried, for they cannot walk. Be not afraid of them, for they can do no harm, nor is it in them to do any good. All right. So worshiping false idols, and this is the point that Jeremiah is saying, worshiping false idols is a waste, because they are worthless. They are useless. They are helpless. These so-called gods are absolutely nothing, which means that worshiping them amounts to nothing. In Jeremiah 2, Israel performed sexual rituals on every high tree, on every high hill and under every green tree. Now, by the time we get to Jeremiah 10, Israel performed those same sexual rituals instead of under every high hill. On every high hill, under every tree. Now they are doing this under every green tree inside their homes. They brought these trees inside their homes. They brought these images inside their homes. They brought the groves inside their homes. They brought the poles inside their homes. And now they are what? Performing rituals, sexual acts underneath these images, underneath these idols, committing sexual prostitution in their homes. That's exactly what this is saying, family. See, every high hill that had a green tree on it was used as an altar for sexual prostitution. They built altars to who? Right? They built these altars, right? The altars was built for, excuse me, the typo here. The altars were built for the Queen of Heaven. And then we go to Leviticus chapter 18:21. Look at what it tells us here. It says, "Thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass through the fire to Molech, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy Elohim. I am Allah, I am Yahweh." Right? So we already dealt with we dealt with the Christmas tree. We dealt with the Yule log. I mean, the mistletoe. We dealt somewhat with the Yule log, but we're going to double back here to the Yule log because it's still part of the tree addiction. We're going to deal with the man branch, right? Still tying into the tree addiction. So let's delve into it. So a further confirmation and illustration of these facts is found in the customs of the Yule log. The word Yule is the Chaldean term for an infant or little child. Hence, it was that Christmas Day was called among the heathens Yule Day or the Child's Day. And the night before Christmas, Mother Night, or ages before the birth of Christ. And this entirely accounts for the putting of the Yule log into the fire on Christmas Eve and the appearance of the Christmas tree the next morning as Zero Ashtar, in other words, the seed of the woman, which name also signifies Ignagina, or born of the fire. He has to enter the fire, on Mother Night, that he may be born the next day out of it as the branch of God, or the tree that brings all divine gifts to men. But why, it may be asked, does it enter the fire under the symbol of a log? And so to understand this, it must be remembered, right? And I'm going to go into that more, right? But again, this is dealing with sacrifices, human sacrifices, family, as the branch of God or the tree that brings all divine gifts to men. So why does he have to enter to the fire under the symbol of a log? Well, let me answer that question. Right? Let me answer that question. Oh, I thought I had it here. All my slides are mixed up. My apologies, family. But this still answers the question anyway. Again, the word Yule is a Chaldean term for infant or little child, and hence it was the Christmas day was called among the heathens Yule Day or Child Day. So the night before Christmas, Mother Night. So in a nutshell, this log will go into the and then guess what? By the next day, the tree grows. Basically, the 25th is supposed to be like a resurrection, a birth of the tree, so to speak. Anyway, I thought I had it in here, but my apologies. I must have accidentally took it out. But nevertheless, Israel had a perpetual tree addiction, right? Judges chapter 2, verse 13 through 16, we'll see it here. This is one of the many captivities. And they forsook Yahweh, served Baal and Ashtoreth. And the anger of Yahweh was hot against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of spoilers that had spoiled them, and he sold them into the hands of their enemies round about, so that they could not any longer stand before their enemies. All right, so we see here, chapter 2, Israel immediately go into tree worshiping, right? Let's see here. I'm not going to deal with this here. Let's continue. Let's continue, right? I want to deal with a key territory Israel conquered, and it's called the city of Palm Tree. And we go to first chapter of Judges, verse 16. It says here, and the children of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up out of the city of palm trees with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which lieth in the south of Arad, and they went and dwelt among the people. So we see the city of the palm trees. Well, why is this important? What's the significance of the palm tree? Well, let me explain it real quick. This is going back to traditions of Eden, proof of the historical truth. All right, page 163. The Christmas tree, now so common among us, was equally common in Rome and Egypt. In Egypt, that tree was the palm tree. In Rome, it was the fir. The palm tree denoting the pagan Messiah as Baal Tamar. The fir referring to him as Baal Berith. In other words, this is where we get Lord of the Covenant. Tamar signifies a palm tree. Tamar, right, the Lord of the palm tree. Baal Berith, which was also one of the titles of the pagan Messiah, signifies Lord of the Covenant. Was almost identical with Baal Berith, right? So we're still dealing with what? The covenant, which signifies the Lord of the fir tree. It was just another instance of that jugglery of words, which by which the cunning priests of Chaldea mystified the common people, and in order to further their own craft, that the word Baal Berith, in other words, Lord of the Covenant, was represented as Baal Berith, Lord of the fir tree. Hence, the fir tree became a symbol of the Babylonian false Messiah. The palm tree was the well-known symbol of victory, and the title, the Lord of the Palm, was apparently given to the pagan Messiah in accordance with the tradition of the primeval promise that the Messiah, in other words, the seed of the woman, should bruise the serpent's head or be victorious over the serpent, that is the devil. So let's deal with Baal Tamar. Who is Baal Tamar? Who is Baal Berith? These deities are directly connected to the worship of the palm tree. All right. Real quick, let me give a shout out here. I see a Cash App here. All right. I want to give a special shout outs here to James Mitchell. Thank you for the love and support. Really appreciate the love and support. Hope this is helping you guys out. I know that my slides is not in the normal sequence that I would have it, because actually this would normally be like a 4 or 5 lessons. Normally this is like a 3-day lessons. Normally takes me like 2 to 3 hours per block. So I'm kind of like, taking pieces here and there from different parts of the lesson and just putting it into one for you guys. So apologies that I don't have my slides, some of the slides here. So thank you again, James Mitchell. Thank you for the love and support. Family, let's show James Mitchell some love. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you again. All right. So these deities are directly connected to the worship of the palm tree. All right. So let's deal with the palm tree. In the Babylonian myth of the primal garden, the palm tree was the tree of life, a dwelling place of the goddess Astarte. The Hebrew version of her name was Tamar or Tamar, in other words, palm tree. Her male counterpart, Baal Peor, or Phoenix, the god of Phoenicia, whose name meant Lord of the Palm. As a phallic deity, Baal Peor symbolized by a palm tree between 2 large stones. Sexual orgies in the temple celebrated his union with the goddess in Phoenicia and in Israel until the priests of Yahweh killed the celebrants in the midst of their rites, right? So the worship of Baal Berith is in the scriptures, family. When we go to Judges chapter 8, starting at verse 33, it confirms it. And it came to pass, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel turned again and went a whoring after Baalim or Balaam, and made Baal Berith their god. So here it is, they doing it again. So now here's Baal of the covenant, Lord of the covenant. So they're entering into what? Another covenant with another deity, right? A false deity. They're entering into a covenant. And family, that's what it means for us in terms of adultery. See, adultery is when you enter into another agreement, another covenant. You're married, but then you enter into another covenant with someone else. That is adultery. You're following, as Israelites, we are in covenant with the Most High through our ancestors, Abraham. So when you go into worshiping other deities, you are now committing adultery. You are entering into what? Another covenant. So that's why you see here, Lord of what? covenant. So our ancestors were entering into what? A covenant with the Babylonian gods and goddesses, right? And this is why the Most High called them a degenerate plant. They were a noble vine, but they had become a degenerate plant because, again, they kept doing what? Entering into covenants with these deities. Especially, they had an addiction for the deities of Baal. They had a tree addiction, as we see here. All right. All right. And the children of Israel remember not Yahweh, their Elohim, who had delivered them out of the hands of all their enemies on every side. So why is Baal Peor referred to as the Lord of the Cleft? All right, let's answer this question here. All right. The Lord of the Cleft, Phoenician phallic god, worshipped with Asherah's Yanni Cleft. Israelites adopted his cult and celebrated sexual rites in his honor in the tabernacle until Yahweh's reformers killed the celebrants. And it makes reference to Numbers 25. Baal Peor's symbol was a palm tree. All right. So in a nutshell, family, this, let me just fast forward, but this is dealing with sexual rituals. All right. So the palm tree represents a male reproductive organ, right? So again, you had the tree, you had the palm, you had the fir, right? You have the fir, or you had palm trees. These are all still part of what? Phallic worship. That's what I said and pointed that out. So these Christmas trees represents phallic worship. That's why under these trees, they committed what? Sexual acts. They built altars. Again, they took these altars, they took these trees and brought these trees into their homes and began to perform sexual rituals at the base of them. So let's go to Numbers 25 and let's confirm what our ancient Israelites relatives were doing here. It says, in Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began kal or kalal, and that means profane. The people profaned, right? Began to profane, right, themselves to commit whoredom, Zan Wath with the daughters of Moab, and they called the people into the sacrifices Zabak of their gods or deities, and the people did eat and bow down to their gods. So now here it is, the Moabites, right? The king of the Moabites, along with Balaam, came up with a plan to seduce the men of Israel to mingle with their women to profane themselves. That was their whole goal, to make it so that way the Most High punishes them, blot them out. And Israel joined himself unto who? As we see here, Baal Peor. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Israel. Come on, family. We see it here. We see it here. Tree worship, right? Baal Pawar, or Baal Pawar, however you want to pronounce that. All right. What we see here, Israelites connected with Baal Peor. They began to engage in phallic worship. They began under every green tree, on every high hill. They began to do what? Play the harlot. And Yahweh said unto Moses, take all the heads of the people and hang them up before Yahweh against the sun, that the fierce anger of Yahweh may be turned away from Israel. And Moses said unto the judges of Israel, slay every one of his men that were joined unto Baal Peor. Come on, family. A lot of people died. So Israel, perpetual tree addiction. As I said, they had a perpetual tree addiction. We go to Judges chapter 3. Look at here, verse 7. Another tree addiction. The children of Israel did evil in the sight of Yahweh and forgot Yahweh Elohim and served Baalim in the groves. Another tree addiction, right? They were addicted to trees. Let's see another one here. Here's another captivity. This is before we get to the captivities of the Assyrians. This is well before the Assyrian captivity. This is before the Babylonian captivity. This is before the Medes and the Persians captivity. This is before the Greeks. This is before the Romans. Israel went into multiple captivities just in the book of Judges. And guess what? Look at here. And he gathered unto him the children of Ammon and Amalek and went and smote Israel and possessed the city of palm trees. Wait a minute, the palm tree, they possessed that city because Israel here was performing sexual rituals. They were addicted to what? The trees here. So the children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. So as you see, the captivity increased each time. Each captivity got longer and longer. Still what? The perpetual consequences of breaking Yah's law, statutes, and commandments. Deuteronomy 28. Right? So family, we're going to stop right here. I know I gave you a lot of information. My apologies for not getting, having all my slides in order that I wanted to go over. I thought I had them in here because I actually go even further with the palm tree and all that. I go even further with the Christmas tree. So I kind of scaled it down just so that way we can get through this presentation, because I probably would be here for another hour or two, just that alone. So I scaled it down because actually I go into tying that Christmas tree to Egypt, giving you sources to the Egyptians, sources to the Babylonians. But as you can see, just off of what we covered, Israel had a serious tree addiction. A serious tree addiction. A serious tree addiction. All right. So with that being said, family, I know that, we went over a lot. And family, I really appreciate the love and support tonight. I know this was not a scheduled live, but I just wanted to do a quick live because I haven't done one all week. I don't think I did one over the weekend, but I just want to at least talk to you guys, give you some sources here to give you more clarity on the tree addictions and so forth. So with that being said, family, I really appreciate the love and support. Thank you for the super chats tonight. And we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And the words of the Most High, the words of encouragement that he gave Moses in Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 and 14. He told Moses to tell the people, fear ye not, stand still, see the salvation of Yahweh. These Egyptians that you see here today, they will not have power over you ever again. The Most High will fight for you. Here's the kicker, family. We have to hold our peace. Can't go back, can't stay here. Keep moving forward. Shalom.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14, verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was black. Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these...
Somebody better call the doctor!